fired on those who were sort of acting against the law, disregarding the fact that this law was something which we wouldn't accept. But if they would prove that they were sort of servants of the system, but fairly loyal and not sort of trying to be overzealous, then everything would be fine. Then new constitution. Well, we changed constitution many times, but finally we managed to have a new constitution only in '97. So that was 8 years after the change. It was not easy. It was not easy. We had tremendous fight. Earlier on, it was sort of a patchwork of the old constitution and amendments. So this is something which maybe you will have also to witness. Then, can the whole process fail? Well, yes, it does. It can. And in fact, unfortunately, what we can see, what is happening in Russia, is just a gradual drift from democracy as we understand democracy to a democracy which is based only on the electoral system. And democracy, and let me repeat something which you are very, very, very familiar with. Democracy is not the rule of the majority, point. The rule of the majority was Greek democracy. And by the decision of the majority, Socrates was sentenced to death. This is not the democracy as we understand. Democracy nowadays is a liberal democracy. It means that the majority rules, but respecting the rights and basic rights of minorities. And minorities have a system of checks and balances which would defend them from the almighty state. And this is something which in countries like Belarus, like China, well, in Iran they also have the elections. And probably, maybe they are not that much rigged. But this is not just enough to say that this is a democracy, and that's what we see happening in Russia. It's simply sort of a drift out of the democracy. Trust in policy, in political system. Well, this is the trouble. This is the trouble we have in Poland, because you see, for a very long time, the administration, the government was not our government, it was the government of our occupying forces. So the result is that we have somehow traditional inclination not to trust the government and to rather take a standoffish position. And this is a problem today. And I think this is not just a Polish phenomenon. Politicians are not people who are sort of generally trusted and very popular. I mean, that they could be well known, but politicians are sometimes seem like not like sort of a necessity, unfortunate necessity. And in Poland, the younger generation, because of tremendous opportunities to make their own career and kind of a rat race we have now, they do not engage that much in politics, and this is a problem. We may have a problem. And that's why, incidentally, voting by internet could help a bit, because it would sort of encourage these younger people who are educated, who are professionals, but who simply do not bother, just to spare enough time, say 15 seconds, to click on the computer and go. But that's it.
Thank you very much. Please. What are the priority questions for me? Yes. How to treat the old guards under the past indoctrination and brainwashing? A good question. I never realized that. But I think we can leave it up to the natural process of survival, because in a new democracy it requires a different method to survive, and that is to survive by the power of reason. And those who have survived in the past did not rely their past survival on the power of reason, but to put themselves in safeguarding the values of the old system. So as we pass the time, I think that creates a natural filter that it will breed new way of thinking that will light up a colorful operation. So we don't need to limit or to ban the old guards, but I think it will be by a natural process that they will lose their credibility. Next, religion in Indonesia. Yes, the democratic transition can be seen as full of dilemma. In an authoritarian system, we can decisively decide of what is acceptable and what is not by unilateral interpretation, by unilateral source of truth. But in a democracy, we have to recognize and respect differences. By that also, we have, as long as they do not violate the law, they have the right to exist. And that widens the risk of those that have negative intents. For instance, some extreme ideologies, but again, the challenge in a democracy is that we have to respect differences, and that is only to be accompanied or guarded by the rule of law and the effective law enforcement functions. It is common to say that, including Indonesia, that Islam in Indonesia is modern Islam. But we cannot take that for granted. We have to work hard to prove that in reality it is a real fact that Islam in Indonesia is modern Islam. And there is no place for those outside modern Islam that can exist in Indonesia. But again, in democratic principles, we just cannot decide by ourselves unilaterally of what is acceptable, what can exist and what cannot exist. So that has to be decided by the effective rule of law and law enforcement functions of the government. I hope that answers your question. Next is that do we need a new constitution? Well, that depends. In the Indonesian experience, we launched amendment 4 times, of once a year, of 2 weeks plenary session of the People's Consultative Assembly, that is the highest political body in Indonesia, to look into the 1945 Constitution and amend the Constitution. But again, it was sentimentally driven. I call it the euphoria of reform. If we could have more time and in a more stable situation to look into the Constitution, what is really required to be changed and what can still be retained in the Constitution, the result might have been different. Because the amendment that was conducted in Indonesia is as I've said, driven by the euphoria of reform, in the sense that what used to be the practice of the new order under President Suharto was the wrong practice, and that the opposite practice is to be installed to replace the old practice. there was no sufficient academic paper to see in a comprehensive academic approach of what is to be amended, why is it to be amended, and what can be retained. So it is important that we have the resources to look thoroughly if we really intend to amend a constitution or to write a new constitution, so that we can say that these are all the things that are required in a new constitution with the change of the new political system. Next, have I done anything, Mr. Chairman? Trust. Between the old regime and
people and parties and the government.
And the parties and the rulers. Difficult question. The trust. Well, I think if we follow the principles of politics, there should be a connection of those public officials who are elected by the constituents, because there is a line that connects between the voters and the elected. But sometimes in the new democracy, somehow these principles are used or misused for other interests, and this creates a break in that line of trust. So it is important that that all the principles of democracy, of what democracy really means, that it is a mandate by the voters to the voted to represent the constituents, be practiced. Then, only then, that we can say that there is a bonding of trust between the voters and the elected public officials. Anything else? Thank you.
The second and the last round of questions. I think there was please. I think you.
My name is Ismail, and I'm interested to ask both of you actually, how did you maintain the morale of the people all through the path to this democratic reform? How did you manage through the financial and economic crisis to keep them along with you on your side? And then the third is a question for you, sir. Since you come from a military background, were you all one hand and one will when you, I'm talking about you as a military, when you made a decision to withdraw from the political and the social scene? When we say the military, is it all one hand all the time, or there might be differences later on? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My question is about Poland. What happened to compensating the families whose lands and properties were confiscated and nationalized during the communist era? Was there any kind of compensation after the fall of communism? Thank you.
I have a Polish name. My name is Magda. General Janusz, can I ask a question about Russia? Because I was a little bit interested in your remark that Russia is an example of the failure of democracy. And my background is I'm not very conversant to the Russian example, but I did hear that it looks free, that there is actually a distribution of who gets how many seats and decade. So I don't know, I mean, maybe you can tell us more about it because this is interesting. And to generalize, I am interested to, because the situation and Indonesia is a little bit close to what is happening in Egypt, I wonder if you have a rate of literacy, or had you already succeeded in solving this problem, and how did you manage, how did this affect the vote? Did the Islamic forces have more leverage with those with higher illiteracy rates? Is this solvable through perhaps a restricted voting system, a two-step voting system, or what? And the other question is, did you feel that after the transition to democracy there was a visible difference in the quality of life, or not?
Thank you very much. Yes, please. I think this would be the last question.
It's one of our investment banker. My question is for Polish expert. When you said about the problem under the communism that Poland has a problem with independence and sovereignty. So I wonder if Polish people feel independent will join the NATO and the EU. And do you think there's still some sort of resistance for the NATO contribution? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last round of reply.
I have only one question. Could you clarify your question again, please, just to make sure that...
the withdrawal of the military from politics, the withdrawal of the military from politics in Indonesia. Was there any problem, were there fractions in the military withdrawal from politics? Was it all the world, or there were some factions within the armed forces who were opposed to this against complete?
Yes. This leads into what we know about the process of change. It is very difficult to change a mindset. It is very difficult to change a result of years of imagination. But the political situation helped that change because, well, first of all, that the discourse of change did not start only in 1998. The discourse for change had already started way before 1998. Only that it was only under President Suharto that nobody dared to state the withdrawal from the new function. But how to enhance military professionalism has always been the subject of discourse. So when in 1998 we saw the coming of democracy as the global value, then we asked the question, what are other alternatives? Is there any other alternatives? We said that it was nearly 0% probability. And by that, how does the Indonesian military respond to that change? Do we cling to the past glories and the past roles, or do we adjust to that change? And up at the leadership level, there was an agreement because also of the situation, of the external situation, where democratic values have been entering and planted within the Indonesian society. The Indonesian military leadership came to the conviction that the military had to change, and by that Indonesian military still claims that the conviction that they have always had, that the military had always been the stabilizing and the dynamizing factor in the society. This time the dynamizing factor is pave the way, open the door, so that democracy can take place in Indonesia. It was a response to the question, are there any other alternatives? And we saw that there were no other alternatives. For the five, that comes to the classic question, what is the relationship between democracy and prosperity? Does the democratic political system automatically can assure and guarantee the delivery of prosperity? Where in the middle lies the element of policies, effective policies formulation and effective policy implementation in all aspects, including economics. That has been a debate in Indonesia. The government will always publish all those positive and good statistics, mainly from the macroeconomics level. But down at the grassroots level, they felt that life is not as easy as they have been in the past. Maybe because that policies were easier to be formulated in the past in a unilateral way, in an authoritarian way. Maybe it was that decisions were easier to be made in an authoritarian political system. But they forgot that the easy process of making decisions were only limited to the privileged few, and that maybe others outside those circles did not have the same opportunity to participate in political decision making. So it depends, but I think one thing is sure, that the effort to establish a more effective democracy should not stop, and that democracy is not only to be seen by elections, but one has to move from procedural democracy into substantive democracy and to deliver prosperity in the end.
Thank you very much. Well, there was a question how we managed to keep people's support. We didn't manage. Well, that was the problem. You see, in the first 4 years we had five governments. That was also part of the result of as I said, disintegration of solidarity. And partly it was the result of a certain tremendous dilemma we had, because you see, in solidarity, our big battalions, our main sort of force, were the workers from huge factories like shipyards, like coal mines, like steel industries. All these factories either went bankrupt or had to reduce considerably the workforce. So those who were our most strong supporters actually lost. And that was a drama, but we had to go through it. And the problem we had was something, which is hard, hard to understand. Because every change we had in these first 4 years was a change which resulted from a major criticism, which was sort of presented to the government, and every new government was coming to an office on the ticket, we will change everything. They changed nothing, because it could not be done. So, despite of the fact that every government was supposed to be the government of change, every government was the government of total continuity on every aspect. And just to give you one example, in 1993, we felt that we must simply introduce VAT taxation. I don't know if you got it or not. Value-added tax.
قريبة كده من طريقة الإنجليزي.
Well,
طريقة المبيعات بس قريبة من طريقة المبيعات.
So this taxation, when it is introduced, usually creates some problems on the market. crisis with people being sort of not knowing how much they're going to pay and so on. And we were hesitating, and we were in a process of electoral campaign. But we decided to go ahead with that, sort of disregarding the tremendous political risks. It worked quite well. We lost the elections, but the government which came after us, the communists, simply got a bag of money, because this system was so efficient that the Minister of Finance suddenly was like a Santa Claus. He could give money for various purposes. So, but we lost elections. We could not make it. But fortunately, the way we sort of set the economy and the political system in 1889 and 90 was so firm that no government really seriously challenged. And this is, I think, our satisfaction, but as I said, we pay the price for that. Then the question of privatization. Unfortunately, this is a very complicated issue, because it is not only the problem of people who simply had their property nationalized or taken over, but we also have problems with people who left their properties in the territories which were considered the Soviet Union. Because Poland, as a result of the Second World War, was a country which was simply shipped 200 kilometers westward. We lost tremendous territories on the east, and we gained certain territories on the west. So the problem was how to solve the problem of those people who simply lost their properties in the east. This is the problem we're still grappling with. But the only way we can really do it is to compensate these people, but not to the full. We have, for example, problems with big landowners. They have palaces, big palaces, for example, which state simply took over and kept it repairing and even somehow renovating for 20 years. And now, if this palace would be given back to them, it would be in a much better shape than it was sort of 40 years ago. So how to take that into account? It is an extremely difficult problem, and as I said, we haven't solved this problem yet, but the only way really we can realistically say about solving this problem is to offer some compensation, but we do not know how much, 20%, 30%, everything which would go be above the 30% would go into the state budget. So that's the question. Then finally, Russia, democracy. Well, Russia is definitely different from the democracy. Now Russia is basically one-party state, our Russia, which again is something very, very strange, because the head of our Russia party is Mr. Putin, who's not a member of this party, but he's chairing this party. But this is the sort of the situation we have quite often in our part of the world. The President Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, claims that he's Orthodox, but at the same time he's an atheist. So these are sort of specifics of our part of the world. Qualitative difference of democracy. I think that we had all the time a problem, because in communism, what communism really was able to offer was security. Because you had, if you did not quarrel with the authorities, you could sort of live somehow. But to have total security is not something which really is something extremely attractive. If you want to have really 100% security, you should go to prison. Honestly. If you are in prison, you are absolutely fine. You are fed 3 times a day, you have shelter, every fortnight you will have a shower, every week you will be shaved, fine. But somehow it is not a very attractive proposition. This is the problem. Democracy offers you not security, offers you freedom. But the problem is that freedom is attractive for younger people. security is more attractive for rather elderly people. And this is something which obviously every democratic system will have to grapple with. You will have to have the same problem. Finally, dependence. Well, you know, the problem is how you really understand the sort of sovereignty of the state. If you think that the state is sovereign only when the state has total free hand in sort of shaping its policy, for example, foreign policy, such state simply does not exist. There is no such state. Just to give you one example, if you are a member of United Nations, and every country is at least one right which was historically given to every state is simply given away, the right to wage a war. Because if you are in the United Nations, you declare, the practice is different, but the declaration is clear, that you simply renounce war as a method of solving problems, of solving difficulties. So every member of the United Nations gave away a part of its sort of sovereign rights. And if you are a member of any agreement, you also, but you are binding. This agreement is binding. You sort of give away your sovereignty because your freedom of action is limited. But that does not mean that you are not sovereign, because you can actually say, all right, I'm no longer a member of United Nations. I'm no longer a member of NATO. I'm no longer a member of the European Union. And so your sovereignty is expressed not by the fact that you have total free movement in every aspect, is that you actually can retain and sort of get back this freedom of movement, then nobody would object. When we were under Soviet rule, we could not simply say, well, we will leave Warsaw Pact. Hungarians tried to do it in 56, and you know this Hungarians tried to by Russian tanks. So that was an entirely different situation. So we think that, you know, being a member of European Union or NATO or any other international agreement does not sort of destroy your sovereignty. It simply somehow makes you a member of wider community. And you know, if we are in the European Union, certainly we gave away quite a lot of our sort of freedom of movement, but we gained influence on what will be the policy of the United Kingdom, France, or Germany, because this policy is to be a joint policy. So we have an influence on their policy, and this is why the European Union can at least somehow be a major international player. So far it is not so, because the agreement to how to shape the foreign policy is not so easy to get, but this is something which will happen. The European Union will no longer be only economic superpower, but will be not a super state, but also a political superpower, and that's at least quite a lot of cost.
All right, I think at the end of this debate, we realize that democracy is not the solution. Democracy does not promise an end to corruption, total end to corruption, does not promise also total security, but democracy at least allows us a framework within which we look for ways to eliminate corruption and to improve the level of security of the people. I think this was a very interesting and stimulating debate, and I'd like to first of all to thank the National Democratic Institute, which helped support this meeting and other meetings also. I'd like to support the Gerhart Center for Philanthropy and Civic participation. I'd like also to thank the School of International Affairs and Public Policies, and I would like, of course, to thank our two distinguished speakers, Professor Janusz, Onyszkiewicz, and Lieutenant General Agus. Widjojo. And I'd like to thank all of you for the
يعني hopefully لا بس عايز حد يجي ياخد الكاميرا يا عمر ايه الاوديو طيب الفيديو بقى فين الراجل بتاع الفيديو
هو بدأ يستلم
بكره طب ده الاوديو انجليزي وعربي احنا بنفسي دي ازاي جاي ها ما بعرفش هو خلينا نخاف يمسح الفايل بلاش يا عم خاف يمسح الفايل طب يا عمر هنتاكد منين هو بيسيب الفايل هما فين هما فين
وجاي
طب ليه